everybody, it's Kelsey. This is Essentially Booked. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. Today is going to be both my September wrap up and my October reading plans. The wrap up will be at the beginning and then we will talk about October. I had an okay September. I did finish the month with probably one of my favorite books so far of the year. And I read a romance that will be probably one of my favorite books of the month this year. All right, so in September, I read 11 books in September, and overall it was actually a pretty good reading month now that I'm looking at it. I read 5 books from the library, 2 books as ARCs, 2 books from my owned shelf, 1 on audio from the library and 1 from Kindle Unlimited. I actually had a really good month. I read 1 Indigenous author and 1 deaf author. So yeah, I think I did, overall I had a pretty good month. I hit my Goodreads goal of 100 books last night when I finished the last book of the month. I'm just gonna go in the order of the books that I read and talk about them this month because I'm just not that organized, if I'm being really honest. One thing I will say is I thought I would have read more audiobooks. I only finished 1 because I am training for a half marathon, and I thought I would listen to audiobooks as I was running, and I've actually found out that's not the case. I prefer music right now. Taylor Swift is totally my jam when I run. Sometimes podcasts, but for some reason audiobooks I don't focus when I'm running, which is actually really surprising. I'm listening to This Promised Land by Barack Obama on audio, and it's I think I still have 12 hours left, and I feel like I've been listening to it for a long time. It's so good, but a lot of my month, it will be top book of the year. So I spent a lot of the month reading this book, but it's not, I probably won't finish it till the end of October if I'm being realistic with myself. So that was one of the asides. But the very first book I finished was Burn the Negative by Josh Winning, and I gave this 3... Did I give this 3.5? No, I gave this 3 stars. Goodreads on desktop is so weird. Burn the Negative is kind of a mashup of horror and suspense where this child actress who starred in the most well-known cult classic film that happened to be cursed. Everybody in this movie dies in the same manner in which their character dies. And so this little girl, after being a part of this movie, she flees to Europe and then becomes a journalist. And fast forward 20 something years, her boss sends her back to LA because they're making a reboot of this movie. And weirdly enough, the deaths start happening again. This was just a really fun, fast-paced book. If you like Riley Sager, I kind of would say it gave me some of those vibes where it's just brain candy, Not overly creepy. There were a few parts that were creepy, but I just had a lot of fun with it. It also has some mixed media components to it. So there'll be a chapter and then you'll get a section of the script from the book or from the movie, or you'll get news articles or articles from People magazine type things. It was just a lot of fun to read. But it was 3 stars because there was some kind of the unraveling of the plot. I was just that wasn't the direction I wanted it to go in. I wanted it to stay firmly where it was, and it wasn't. The book that I read next is On Earth as It Is in Television by Emily Jane. I was sent this from Dog-Eared Books. It's actually a signed copy. And this will win the award for the quirkiest and weirdest book that I read this year. This is fully literary fiction, fully character driven. There is very minimal plot. A lot of it is basically, the premise is the arrival of spaceships can bring up a lot of big questions. What does it mean when we're not alone? Why did aliens come here? Who knew beforehand? Where are the aliens going? Wait, they can't just leave. And that's kind of the blurb for this book. So literally aliens come to Earth, hover over the big cities, and then leave. And humanity goes into a tailspin, obviously. And it follows 4 different people. They are connected, but you don't figure out how they're connected till the very end. So there is a husband whose wife is acting super strange, a cat, or a brother who is in a coma, and when the aliens come, he wakes up, and he is just what's going on? He's been in a coma for 20 years. And then a stepdaughter. And you just see these 4 characters, and the first half of the book is literally just their thoughts as these aliens are here and very existential crises, but nothing happens. And then at the end, it all comes together in a really beautiful way. it's very good at like showing the banality of life, but also the quirkiness and weirdness that is life. Like sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And I think that this book is a good example of that in a literary way. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars initially, but I'm bumping it up to 4 because I did think about it a lot. And I still am thinking about it, but this is very much for a very certain type of reader. I don't think a lot of people would love this at all. I think a lot of people would highly dislike it because nothing happens. I loved it. I could see why people don't love it. I know one of my friends didn't really enjoy it that much, but I also laughed out loud a ton during this book. So there's that. I don't know. It was just a really fun experience. The next book I read was It Was an Ugly Couch Anyways and Other Thoughts on Moving Forward by Elizabeth Passarella. I gave this 4 stars. It is basically a collection of essays by a columnist from Southern Living. And it's about her kind of navigating times in her life when she had to let things go. Like one chapter is about this hideous couch that was her dad's that she finally just has to let go. And like you learn about her husband being super sick and they can't figure out why and they're really young. It's really funny. There's a lot of really good commentary on motherhood, trying to move apartments, and just the logistics of doing that in New York City was really fascinating. But this was like a very lovely essay book, which I'm finding I'm really liking this year. But after I read Ann Patchett's book, These Precious Days, It Was an Ugly Couch Anyway was a really good follow-up, and I had a great time reading it. Oh, and then I read Enchanted to Meet You, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because I'm actually going to have a vlog go up next Sunday about this book. That's Meg Cabot's adult fantasy. It's a witch fantasy. The next book I read was Financial Feminist by Tori Dunlap. I listened to her podcast. It's a finance book. Women couldn't have a credit card until the 1970s without their husband's approval. And a lot of financial statistics and facts show women are consistently behind men in all things, you know, from the pay gap to even just like how much we have in investments. Her book makes a really solid argument for how for so long it was a white man's club. Like that's just the reality of America. And as women began to get more independence, we're just behind because we've been behind forever. And so this is just a really empowering book. I loved it. I'm actually going to buy a physical copy for my shelf because her information on investing is just so gold and like so good. We are really focusing on paying down my student loans this year. Law school is expensive. And so like, I just really appreciated this because she makes budgeting work for you versus like a hard set of rules. I don't know. She just really has the best tone. Lots of cursing, but totally. And also very diverse. Like she elevates diverse voices, which I think is so important. So definitely recommend this. Okay, then I read my most hated book of the year, like easily. I would have given it 1 star, which is what I give DNFs, well, actually I don't rate DNFs. 1 star, I gave it 2 stars, which is really generous, honestly. It's called Bonk by Mary Roach, and it is this curious coupling of science and sex. And so she looks at how sex is studied. I don't really know how to describe this. It was a disgusting book. She was looking at the science of how various aspects of intimacy and stuff are studied, and like reading about some of the things was just unsettling. Like there's descriptions of certain surgeries, but she has this tone that is like downright disrespectful, but she's trying to be funny. And there's a few scenes in this book that cross like way over the line ethical boundaries. There's no footnotes as to whether she got patient's consent for what she did. Like I couldn't get past that. And it was really sad because to write a book of this caliber with this much research and science, like I have the expectation that the author would follow the guidelines. And there's just a lot of ethical yuckies in here. But what blew my mind is nobody in the reviews on Goodreads mentioned that. And at book club, this was our book club pick this month, like we talked about that for a really long time, that we were all blown away because we all caught it. This book did come out, I think, in 2008, but still, like reviews are still coming in on it. I'm just blown away that people didn't see the ethical questions. Worst book of the year. I did give it 1 star on Goodreads, thank the Lord. Oh gosh, guys, it was bad. And some people really love her, and I don't think I will ever pick up another book because that book was so terrible. What the Hex by Jessica Clare is probably my favorite romance that I will read this year. It is enemies to lovers, has never been more enchanting. Penny, the main character, is a familiar to a witch, and familiars are like not like animals that we would think of. I just thought that was a fun play, but they basically support witches and give them an energy source to draw from, and it's how they train to become witches. And she becomes a familiar to like one of the oldest warlocks or witches in history. He's been kind of ostracized, and she helps him not be ostracized. But it was just a really fun book. This is book 2 in the series. I really liked it. I will be talking about this more in another video down the road. And then the next book I read was The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. I also will not talk about this very much. I gave it 3 stars, really liked it. It's a beautiful look at grief amidst like a magical family, but it will be in my video next week. So I'm not going to touch on that for very long. And then I read Winter Counts by David Heska Wanbley Wyden. And this I would blurb as Indigenous razor blade tears. And I learned so much about Indigenous living and culture and just some of the discourse and discussion within Indigenous communities. This is about kind of a vigilante within the tribe in South Dakota. So when the government doesn't step in for certain crimes, because the federal government has jurisdiction over felonies committed on the reservations at the time of this book, I believe that has changed or is in the process of being appealed through the Supreme Court. I need to follow up on that legislation and the cases. But at the time of this book, the federal government has jurisdiction over felonies, and they frequently decline to prosecute them within reservations. This is a really sad thing, but it has always caused some like disconnect between the Indigenous populations of our country and the federal government. So when the federal government doesn't step in, they will reach out to Virgil Wounded Horse to extract vigilante justice on people, and he does. He is the caregiver to his nephew, and his nephew gets looped into this drug investigation. And Virgil then discovers that this drug investigation is a lot bigger and in scope than what he thought. It's not just simple like teenagers smoking weed. It's much bigger, and he finds out that there are forces at play within the reservation that are moving this along. Really good, really fast paced, unputdownable. There is going to be a second book coming out, I think next summer in this series. And I'm really excited because I just think this author does a very great job of making it compelling, making a point about the disadvantages the Indigenous people are at in the United States, and doing it in a way that is impactful and meaningful and educational. Like I learned a lot in this book. I really, really liked it. There's also a lot of talk about the Indigenous food movement, which I'm a big foodie, so I just found that really interesting too. Yeah, really, really liked it. And then I finished 2 fantastic books within 2 5-star reads within the last 2 days. So, all right. I read Divine Rivals and loved it, 5 stars. Get the hype. I'm really, really upset that I have to wait until December 26th for the second book to come out, and I really hope it comes out on Kindle Unlimited, because if it doesn't, I'm gonna cry, but I will buy it. Actually, I do think I want these on my shelf. But this follows 2 correspondents who work for a newspaper, and Iris is kind of poor. She's really down on her luck, having a really rough life, and her brother goes off to war and she misses him a lot. And then there's Roman, who is a wealthy boy. His family has always told him what to do. They're rivals trying to get this position at the newspaper. Well, when things blow up, Iris then goes to the front lines of this war where the gods are at war, and it mimics World War I. They are communicating to each other via these typewriters that are enchanted, and they don't know that they're communicating to each other, and this love story blooms over correspondence, but it also blooms in real life, and it's just a lovely, lovely story. I loved it, 5 stars, guys. It was so worth my time. And then the final 5-star read for the month that I finished last night is True Biz by Sarah Novick. This was the Modern Mrs. Darcy book club pick, and I just really loved it. It's a look at the deaf community at a deaf school, and you learn so much. Like, I just had no idea, which is definitely an indication of my privilege, but how cochlear implants are not always a good thing. And like, there's a lot of disconnect between the deaf community as to whether that's good or not. Like, there's been some that are defective, and because these deaf people are not hearing, they don't know what like is good sound or bad. And then hearing people are like forcing them to keep them in. There's a conversation about, if you have a cochlear implant, should you be signing? And there's one character, Charlie, who she has a cochlear implant and was never taught how to sign. And so she doesn't have these communication skills. Like, I just can't even fathom not being able to communicate and then having so much stimulation in your brain. It's like, that doesn't even like scrape the surface of how many things this book goes into. And it is just, such a good read. Oh my goodness, I will be thinking about this forever. There's really cool interspersed stuff in here. Let me see, like how signing works and how ASL works as a language. There's little blurbs in here about like the history of deaf culture. Just wonderful, like both educational and fiction. I don't know, this author like knocked it out of the park for me. I'm so glad I finally picked this up, but easy 5 stars. Okay, so that is all that I have read in September. October, I am going to do something different. I'm going to participate in Becca and the book's spookopoly. And so I'm going to be rolling as I go. I won't have an official TBR this month. I have a few books I need to read for like book clubs and stuff, but all in all, I'm going to be rolling as I go, and I'm really excited for that. Like, I am going to be rolling. They have to be books that I own, and I've pulled some that are like spooky geared, but I really want to focus on book of the months again. This month I only knocked out 1 book of the month, so I'm going really great on my book of the month challenge here. I do want to talk about some of the books that I do need to read this month. For my book clubs, I've got Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey, and this one I've heard nothing but good things about, so that will be one priority. And then I need to read A History of the World in 6 Glasses for my book club. And that is like the history of alcohol. I have a couple other videos going on planned for October. So these videos are, I'm not going to talk about the books that I want to read for them because they're spoilers, but I still have 5 books for that series I need to read. So I will be interspersing those with spookopoly. But if my roles match like those descriptions, then I will make those count. So I've got a pretty good idea for spookopoly. So on top of the books that I need to read this month, so book club books, and then the books for these vlogs that I'm working on, I would like to read at least 6 books from my shelf using Spookopoly. I've got a good little stack over here. I don't know if you can see, this is just chaos, but I have to pick up my whole thing. So that stack is kind of some books that I would like to draw from my Spookopoly rolls. That's it. I'm really excited for October because I haven't really mood read. And this isn't even mood reading, but I'm excited for the rolls to tell me what I need to read. I don't know. I'm just excited for the possibilities because I think I have a stack of books I want to read, but I know that that's not how the rolls will lie, right? So I'm excited to see how this pans out and what books I actually read at the end of the month. So that's October's plan. Thank you so much for sticking around with me. If you've watched a video and like it, please like, comment, subscribe. Stick around. Like, I love books. I enjoy talking about books. As we all do. But I'm so grateful you are here and I'm so thankful for you. I hope you have the loveliest day, and until the next video, bye everybody.